Hey there, everybody. We are back with STAR² Talks Compensation Planning. So if that's the webinar you thought you were logging into, you are in the right place. Today, we are in our second of our 6-part series, and we're going to be talking about communicating your compensation plan today. Hello there. I'm Suzanne Speer. I'm the Director of Workforce Development here at ACU, and I am just thrilled to be here with you today. We are excited to be putting on this session for you and with a bunch of different speakers, and looking forward to presenting this one in-house today. Whoops, forwarded a little bit too much there. So those of you who are new to or not as familiar with ACU, or the Association of Clinicians for the Underserved, we are a national nonprofit, and we were started over 20 years ago as an alumni association for NHSC scholars and loan repayers. You can, think of us as workforce people. So we really are united in the mission. Changed a lot over the years as we started as a National Service Corps Alumni Association, but we are united in the mission of providing access to care for people in underserved communities, as well as clinician support for those that, that serve those communities. So as I mentioned, we're workforce people, and we're focused on the recruitment and retention of clinical providers in those underserved communities. We have a bunch of things that we work on here at ACU. National Health Service Corps remains true to our focus. It is our chief policy and advocacy platform that we have. And in addition to that, we develop resources and training materials on a variety of different subjects. Right now, we have something we are working on suicide prevention and primary care. And also we do provide networking opportunities at our annual conference in July. And that conference is for providers, health center staff, health center leadership, as well as those who work on workforce subjects or areas at their health centers or at their state or national levels as well. So ACU has a National Cooperative Agreement, and you might have heard of National Cooperative Agreements, or NCAs. We are funded by the Bureau of Primary Health Care, the same people that fund health centers, and also PCAs. And NCAs focus on a variety of different topics that affect health centers. There are a variety of different subjects, such as homeless populations, migrant workers, school-based health care, LGBTQ populations, et cetera, et cetera. There are 2 NCAs that focus on workforce. One is focused on pipeline and team-based care, and that is the Community Health Center, Inc. in Connecticut has that one. And then here at ACU, we have the Recruitment and Retention Workforce NCA. And so we make up those 2 that serve that particular subject area. So our National Cooperative Agreement is called the STAR², which stands for Solutions, Training, and Assistance for Recruitment and Retention. And I'll apologize, you guys, I've had a tickle in my throat today. Our website is chcworkforce.org, and I would encourage you, if you haven't been there before, or if you haven't spent much time there, to go there and check out all of the tools and resources that we have available there to you. And just to highlight a few of our tools and resources that we have, you can see them here. We have a variety of different tools and templates under our resources tab. We have an entire resources library that you can check out. You can search by media, media type. So if it's a webinar or a tool or a paper, things like that. And you can also search by either original resources or just any sort of resource that is relating to workforce there. For training, we offer a variety of different ways that we train folks. So we do webinars, things like exactly what you're sitting in here today listening to. And we do them on various subjects. And we also have learning collaboratives and self-paced courses. So learning collaboratives are focused learning opportunities for health center staff around a specific topic area. And those are generally about 3 months long that involve web sessions, homework, office hours, and also discussion board where you can log in and chat with the fellow members of your cohort. Those are based on an application, and we usually have about 30 people in each of our learning collaboratives. So again, if you sign up for our newsletter at chcworkforce.org, you can stay abreast of all the different learning collaborative opportunities that we have going on there as well. Self-paced courses are one of our newest learning opportunities. Those courses, we have 6 online so far, and we're getting ready to add 4 more here very soon. Those are courses on a variety of different recruitment and retention topics broken down into bite-sized pieces. They are designed to be about 30 minutes long. Right now, they are on 101 level topics, and you can take those at your leisure, as the name implies, and learn more about the various different topics there. Great for people who are new to workforce or recruitment and retention, and then also people who workforce or recruitment might not be their primary job function, and you can learn a little bit more about those specific things there. Assistance. I have a ton of assistance. It's free, just like all of the other resources that we have there. If I haven't mentioned that in this last 6 minutes, shame on me. All of the resources that we provide and develop are free. We are, the Bureau pays us and funds us to do that. And so just like this webinar, it's all free, and we want you all to take advantage of it. And if there's something that you don't see or that you need assistance on, please let us know. We are here for you and want you guys to be able to take advantage of our resources. As I mentioned, I'm Suzanne Speer, and I am joined at the STAR Center. We have an amazing, wonderful team. I'm joined today on the line by Mariah Blake, and she's our program manager, and she keeps us all together and running, and she is here on the line to answer any technical questions that you might have. You can put it in the questions box, and or if you're having trouble connecting audio, things like that, feel free to email her at mblake@clinicians.org. Allison Abe-Sekra, who is our VP of Training and Programs at ACU. She is also on our STAR Center core team here. She is not on the line today, but she has been at the STAR Center since its inception, so you might have heard of her, and most of you have probably heard of her. And she is also here as a resource as well. Okay, just a few more housekeeping items before we dive into all things compensation today. Again, as I mentioned before, we record all of our webinars. So, and just with all of our other webinars, yes, we are recording today's session. So you can go back and access it on our website once it is done there. Feel free to ask questions as we go along, and those are going to be answered at the end. And but feel free you don't have to wait till the end to put them in the questions box. Excuse me. Feel free to ask them as we go along, and I will get to them at the very end. And finally, we know sometimes recruitment and retention topics can be a little bit dry, but we're going to try to have a little fun today. We're going to be doing some polls and things like that. So sit back, relax, and we're going to jump and dive right in. So health center workforce planning. You might have seen this slide if you have seen things that we have done before. We at the STAR Center really emphasize having a data-informed approach to workforce and workforce planning. So having said that, you can imagine that planning and using strategies are the hallmark of what we do. So if you take the time to put your ideas down, do a little planning, come up with strategies for those, for that plan, then you ultimately have success when it comes to your workforce efforts. So the goals today are to discuss compensation as a part of the overall workforce picture. And we're going to paint a picture and show you how workforce as compensation is a part of the overall workforce strategy there. And we're going to review benefits of communicating your compensation program, and then also identify ways to communicate about your compensation program. Okay, as we set the stage here, we're taking a look at the core components of a robust health center workforce. And as you can see, there are 8 different components there, and 2 of them are highlighted. So one is talking about having an effective and equitable compensation structure, which is the most of the, what this series is about. But really, it also, these buckets, they're not siloed. They really can go into one another. So you can see that the bucket that's focused on a positive culture focused on engagement is also highlighted too, because when we talk about having a positive culture focused on engagement, this has to do with communication and talking about all the things that are going on at your health center, from management to health center staff. So we're highlighting those 2 core components here today, and we're going to talk a little bit about why those 2 are highlighted and how they go together, and how that a communication affects your overall or relates to your overall compensation structure there. And if you're interested, you can go to the core components overview that's linked on our website, and it'll tell you much more, a lot more things about the core components and how they relate to your overall workforce. Okay, so as I mentioned that we were taking a look at the 2 buckets, and so compensation structure and culture and engaged culture. So really what your compensation is, what you want to think about when it comes to your compensation plan. And Kurt talked a little bit about it last week, and he's going to do some more speaking about it in future webinars, but really not really focusing on the nitty-gritty here, but when you're broadly looking at your compensation package, how does it tell your story about your health center? How does it relate to your overall mission of your health center? And is it reflective of the story that you want it to tell? There are a million different things that you can do when it comes to compensation planning, and Kurt is going to talk a little bit about, more about that in further sessions. But you really want to think about, when it comes to communicating your overall compensation plan and your overall compensation package, how does it relate to who you are as a health center and the story that your health center, you want your health center to tell? So how does the specific elements of your compensation plan paint the picture or tell the story of your health center? So that's what we're going to talk about today, excuse me, is telling your story about your compensation plan. Okay, so we're going to dive into the subject of communication and how it relates to your compensation strategy today. And we really want you to think about, it's easy to dive into a subject and to think about, each of those buckets that are in the core components, and think about them, as silos, as I mentioned earlier. But you want to ensure that before you start to revamp your compensation structure and your compensation strategy, at the same time, you want to make sure that you're evaluating your communication strategy as well, because how you communicate about your overall compensation plan is really important. So you don't want to overlook how you're communicating about that when you're looking at exactly the elements of your compensation plan and all the things that go into that. So you really want to look at them together. And I know we're going to talk much more about the nitty-gritty about compensation and all the things that have to do with the actual plan itself. And Kurt talked a little bit about the finances of that last week, but today we're really going to think about communication and how the work that you're going to be doing in the next several weeks relates back and crosses over into that communication bucket. So I mentioned we're going to be doing some polls, and in a second, Mariah is going to launch the first poll. And The first one is this. Do you have a communications plan surrounding compensation? So please check one of these boxes depending on how it pertains to your health center. So number one is yes, we have a formal compensation communication plan. Two is yes, we have a plan, but it's nothing formal. And three, we don't have a plan, but do communicate about compensation, or four, not yet, or D, not yet. So go ahead and take a second to put your answer in the box, and we'll keep it open for a little bit longer, and then we'll take a look at what you guys have to say. And I will say that there's no wrong answer here. We just are trying to get an idea about where everybody is on this particular subject. Okay. Thank you, Mariah. She's closed our poll there. And so it looks like it was a pretty equal split between so 14% both said we have a formal compensation communication plan and you have a plan with something formal. But 52% of you said we have a plan, we don't have a plan, but do communicate about compensation. That's great. I'm glad that you guys are, and some of you said not yet. And, you know, it's great that some of you are, you know, communicating about compensation, and even better that you have a plan. For those of you who don't have a communications plan about compensation, I hope that the information today will spark you to have a compensation plan, a communications plan about your compensation plan. That's a tongue twister if I've ever heard one. Okay. So no matter what your answer was on that poll question, today is the day, especially those, excuse me, who don't have a communications plan around your comp plan. It is time to make one. So you want to, you know, seize the day, carpe diem. It is really great for you guys to be able to be here on this webinar today, involved in this conversation, and you know, get your roadmap for your communications. Figure out a strategy. You know, you had it as we go back to that slide where you have, you know, all the different, you know, idea, planning, strategy, and then success. Your idea starts today. So you want to make sure that you are putting down and you're going to develop some strategies to overall have success in this area. If you take a look at data on and you keep track about your communication about compensation at your health center, that you will see some increased engagement, some increased retention, and a whole host of other positive benefits there at your health center. So for this next little bit, we're going to be talking about, you know, the W questions, you know, who, what, when, where, and how. And I guess H is not a W question, but you get the idea there. So we're going to start with why. Excuse me, and I sincerely apologize for this terrible tickle in my throat today. Why should we communicate about compensation? Well, there are a lot of reasons you should communicate about compensation, and these are just some of those reasons. So first and foremost, employees are going to feel more informed. So this sounds like a duh, you know, but really they will. If you're communicating about compensation and all the things that go along with compensation, they're really going to feel that they're more involved. They're going to feel as they're more a part of the organization. And this goes across all of your health center staff. It doesn't just have to be providers or your clinical staff. This can be your front desk staff. Anybody at your health center, you should be communicating about your compensation plan. So just keep that in mind. So they're going to feel more informed, and therefore their morale is going to increase, because if they feel like that you are sharing information with them, they're really going to feel like they're a valued part of your organization. So informing them, increasing their morale. If their morale is increased, they're going to be more productive. They're going to want to put forth a better effort and do a better job, whatever their job is at your health center, and be more productive. So whether that is, you know, being more efficient with rooming patients, or, getting all of the, the billing done, or all those reminder calls done, whatever their role is at your health center, they're going to tend to be more productive when you communicate with them. And the next two things kind of go together. Really, if they have a better morale overall of your organization, folks are probably going to tend to stay. So if you have great morale at your organization, fueled by that communication, your tenure of your employees is going to increase, and your burnout is also going to decrease. So, those things are, just some of the benefits. There are a lot of other benefits, but overall, your employees are going to feel more valued. They're going to feel more engaged, and they're really it's just going to be a positive thing. Why else should you communicate about your compensation? Well, I have 3 words for you. In real estate, it's location, location, location. And when it comes to workforce, it's retention, retention, retention. So think about that. And no matter what your role is, and if you're in HR, or if you're a leader at your health center, or whatever your role is, this is an important factor. And so when you think about communication, just keep these 3, this phrase in mind: retention, retention, retention. And it's not just, it's not just all about the number on the paycheck. Feeling like they are a part of what's going on and knowing what's going on is crucial. I know I personally always am more likely to feel engaged and to stay at a place when I feel like people are being upfront with me, and I know I can trust what they're saying, and that I have a full idea about what's going on with, for any reason about, whether it's compensation or anything else. But, especially when it comes to compensation and compensation packages, it's great to know when you feel like people are being honest and straight with you. Okay. So next we're going to move on to who should be communicating about compensation. And we're going to launch another poll question here, poll question 2. So who's doing most of the communication about compensation in your organization? Is it your senior staff or your C-suite, your HR team, your managers, or I'm not sure who's doing that? And again, no wrong answers here. We're just trying to get an idea about the overall makeup of the group here on the line today. Mariah's going to keep it open just for a few more seconds to give everybody a chance to weigh in there. Okay, great. So it looks like, thank you, Mariah. It looks like overwhelmingly the HR team is communicating with the staff at your health center at 55%. 18% in each of the senior staff or managers buckets, and then we have 9% that says they're not sure. And that is great as a snapshot. I think that's very typical of what you'll find at health centers. And we're going to talk a little bit more about some different things in regards to the who of communication here right now. Okay, so it's very typical to have your HR staff be involved in communication because they're the ones typically who do the payroll, right? They're the ones that are that they're running the numbers, that they're interacting with your accounting. They see the hard and fast numbers. What we'd encourage you as a part of this time together today is to involve your managers more when it comes to talking about communication. Not to say, again, that there's any wrong way to communicate about compensation, but we really want you guys to start thinking outside of the box a little bit, because 55% of you are having your HR staff do most of your communication when it comes to compensation. Now, 18% of you said that your managers are doing that, so that's great. Those of you who are having your managers communicate about it, that's great. I'm assuming that your HR staff does it as well. But again, there's no wrong way to communicate. We just want you guys to make sure that you are communicating about compensation. So a couple of the things that are advantages to having communication done by the managers is that first of all, they are the ones who generally have the most interaction with your staff, unless your staff is in the HR department of your health center, right? So those people, those managers are going to see your staff every single day, or at least on a regular basis, more, especially if you have multiple locations at your health center. These people are going to be the people who spend the most time with your staff there. And these are also conversations that are both formal and informal, and it can be a part of a review. And a lot of people talk about compensation then, and we'll talk a little bit more about that in a minute. But it could also be informal. So when it comes to compensation, and Kurt is going to go about building compensation packages and all the different types of things that go along with your overall compensation package, these are things like, so if you have an employee assistance program at your health center. So this is an example of when your manager could speak to an employee about, employee assistance program. So if something is going on and your employee assistance program covers things like confidential counseling or, planning with certain services, those types of things that, are kind of outside, it's an outside organization and outside the purview of what your HR staff does directly, and you have access to this employee assistance program, and one of your employees comes to you and says, I'm really having a hard time with X, Y, and Z at home, or that type of thing. And as a manager that your compensation program, one of your benefits is this employee assistance program, and it offers these services. Well, that would be something great to tell them, our employee assistance program, might be able to help with that. And, so you might want to get in touch with that. So, on an informal basis, reminding them about all the things in their compensation plan, especially about their benefits, is a really crucial thing and a space that the managers can fill. Obviously, HR staff is well-versed in all of the compensation plan, but since your managerial staff has a lot of interaction with with their employees, this is really a good first line to be able to communicate with your employees about all the different benefits in your compensation package. So this is a great opportunity, and having said all this, you want to make sure that your managers are well-versed and are well-educated when it comes to your overall compensation plan, and especially the benefits and how you determine salaries, all those type of things. There's certain things that you can share about compensation in general. There are obviously some things that are confidential, but to the extent that you want to be sharing information with the manager so then they can share the information with their employees, whether it's about benefits, whether it's about salaries, how they're determined, things like that. Educate your managers so they are empowered to be able to have those relationships with their staff. And as a result of these communications that they're having on a regular basis and regular interaction, it's really going to build those relationships. And, a couple of slides, back, I said, increases morale and increases tenure. So if your staff has managers that they can go to and talk about, all these different things, and there are obviously some things that they won't know about, maybe specifics when it comes to your health insurance, those type of things that are really nitty-gritty things. Those might be better reserved for HR staff and to those who actually implement those plans. But educating your managers so that they can talk to the folks that they manage on a regular basis about this will really pay off dividends. And will also, by doing this, it's also going to take some of the burden off the HR staff on a regular basis, an everyday thing. Hey, when are, or what's a typical raise, or, do you know about this benefit or that benefit? So they can really be on the front lines to triaging that, and then anything that they don't know then can go to another level. And again, if this is not something that you currently you currently do, you want to think about really empowering your managers to be that front line of communication and being able to answer those questions and being that triage for the health center staff there. Okay, now that we've talked about who and why, we're going to talk about what. So we're going to be talking about what are you communicating about your compensation plan. And so you might be thinking to yourself, what do you mean, what are we communicating about our compensation plan? We're telling people how much they're making and what their benefits are. So more specifically, you want to make sure that you are communicating all of the elements of your compensation plan. So whether it is when it comes to compensation, as in, their paycheck, all the things that go along with that. So that's base salary. That's mean bonuses, and bonuses can be anything from production bonuses to, QI bonuses, quality initiative bonuses, referral bonuses, anything that is a part of the compensation, or it goes into their salary, their paycheck, things like that. Also, too, all the different benefits that you have, you should be communicating these so, that folks can take advantage of them. Most often times, the health center has some stake in these benefits, or, they're putting up at least some money for these benefits. So you want to make sure that you're communicating the benefits so that those who would like to take advantage of them are taking advantage of them. Along those same lines, what you should communicate, why they're part of your compensation plan. So, again, anything having to do with salary and all the different types of things, bonuses, things like that, why you have them there, what purpose they serve, all of those things are important to communicate to your staff and, the reasoning behind them. Especially because, especially of your benefits might not be relevant to everyone. So communicating why you have them will help people get you're painting that picture of your overall philosophy and why they're included there. You also want to make sure that you're communicating, the base pay when we're talking about salary and how that relates to market rate, how you determine your salary ranges, those type of things. Again, there's going to be some things that you're not going to be able to communicate with all levels of staff, and we totally understand that. But being as transparent as possible when it comes to your overall communication and your compensation strategy is really important. So, thinking about, this is how we determined, the salary ranges for this position. It's really important to be able to share those with folks when they ask, because, or also, communicating about how often you take a look at those market rates and their base pay, because markets are changing. And especially as we come out of the recession of a few years ago, cost of living is going up. People want to know that you're keeping up with them. And this, this is really going to help boost that morale that we talked about earlier, and making sure that they know that you're thinking about them, that they're seen, they're valued, and they're heard when it comes to, especially when it comes to salary. Everything is important. But when it comes to salary, they want to know that you are, at the end of the day, cost of living is going up and they have to pay their bills. So, letting them know that you are, looking at that annually or semi-annually, that's important to communicate as well. And that also goes into your overall compensation philosophy. So how you pay people, why you pay them, what you pay them. Again, that goes into that base pay and market rate, as well as all of the different benefits that you have, why you have them, just communicating those things, that your philosophy of your compensation plan, and also the sort of that story that I talked about in some of those first slides about, what the story is, make sure that your overall compensation philosophy and really matches up to the story that you want to tell about your health center there. And as I alluded to in the last slide, your workforce is very diverse. So you're going to have, when we talk about diversity here, we talk about a whole host of different things. Diverse when it comes to age, gender, cultural background, all those different things make up diversity. So keep that in mind when you're talking about what you communicated and all those parts about your of your compensation plan. So you want to make sure that you're keeping in mind how you communicate all of the different aspects of your compensation plan based on the diversity of your health center workforce. And this is great when you're helping, when you're talking to your managers about communication, they can really personalize this. It's a little bit different when you're having it come in a group setting, but when your managers are doing that one-on-one communication, they know the background of their employees. And so they're able to personalize their communication when it comes to your overall compensation plan. So things like a retirement plan, a 403B, or whatever your retirement plan is at your health center, talking to them about that and all the ins and outs about the 403B is probably going to be more important to someone who is a baby boomer or, older, the upper part of the Gen X generation versus a millennial, because, that's just the stage of life that they're in. And that's just one aspect of diversity that you want to keep in mind when you're communicating that. And be sensitive that, again, certain parts are going to be more important to others. And so this is, about, what you should communicate and also how you should communicate it. Because, again, different things are, different elements of your compensation plan are going to be important for different people depending on their background and also their age as well. Moving on to when you're communicating about your compensation plan. So, with this, with when, we're going to launch into our next poll about how often you communicate your compensation plan to your employees. So thank you, Mariah, for launching the poll. So put this here, answer this depending on what best reflects your communication when you communicate about your compensation plan to your employees. So during an annual review or when new benefits come out, more than once a year, an ongoing basis, or I'm not sure. Again, no wrong answers here, just trying to get an idea about how often and when you communicate about your compensation plan to your employees. We'll give it one more second and then for folks to answer, and then Mariah will go ahead and close that poll and okay, great. So overwhelming, 63% communicate during employees' annual review or when new benefits come out. 5% say that they communicate about it more than once a year, and 32% say, I'm not sure. Thank you guys so much for weighing in on that. It's definitely something that I think most people communicate about when they are talking about their annual review. Compensation most likely will come up in that annual review process. And that's definitely a typical time to do that. And we're going to talk a little bit about doing that and maybe adding some additional communication when it comes to compensation there at your health center. So one thing you don't want to do is have compensation disappear into the background. You don't want it to get lost in your in the everyday comings and goings. There's so many things that are going on at your health center, and not that you want it to be the only thing that you're communicating about, but you want to make sure that it is a part of a continual conversation. So whether it might not be in a formal basis, again, we talked a lot about, managers and their role in communication, let this be something that is an ongoing conversation, and don't let people just not think about it. It's really something that you want to make sure that you're highlighting, again, especially when it comes to benefits that they might not use. So most people have health insurance and dental insurance and things like that, but those other benefits that you have as a part of your overall compensation plan, make sure that people are taking advantage of it and they're able to take advantage of it if they remember that it's available. So again, things like an employee assistance program, a lot of health centers have, but people don't think about it. And so they're not taking advantage of those great benefits that are available to them because they just don't think about it. So make sure that you pull those things into the foreground and you are communicating them to your employees. Okay, so again, that having that regular communication is key when it comes to your compensation plan. Again, all of this communication is just building relationships. And that, again, it's important when it comes to anything at your health center. It's going to reinforce your strength of your compensation plan. So if you're communicating on a regular basis about your amazing benefits and really telling people, oh my gosh, well, we have a benefit for that, or you are, you're pregnant. Oh, guess what? We have we're partnering with a childcare organization, or we have a childcare credit, those type of things. Or you just moved into the city. Great. We have a program that has, discounted metro passes, those type of things. So it really is able to reinforce the strength of your overall compensation plan and bring it again to the forefront of people's mind about, about all the great things that you have in your compensation program. Chances are there is something that your staff is not taking advantage of. So really keeping that into the forefront of their mind, reinforcing those strengths, letting them know about things that you have to offer is really going to benefit your health center in the long run. Regular communication also helps you to evaluate your weaknesses. Now, everybody, there's always a benefit, or there's always, an element of, compensation packages that are going to be somewhere you can work on. Compensation is evolving, benefits are evolving. And so you want to make sure that you have that open eye and those open ears, whether it's through HR staff or your frontline managers, to be able to identify those gaps or those places where you could have opportunities for improvement or things that you want to add to your overall compensation program. So it's really great to be able to have that regular communication to figure out what you're doing well and things that you're not doing so well. And so having that regular communication allows for that open feedback and that open dialogue to be able to do that. So again, just keep that in mind for those of you who don't have a communication plan. Think about this, because that regular communication is definitely key. And for those of you who have a communication plan, but it might only be communicated, once a year, formally, think about how you might be able to add some more regular communication. And again, whether it's formal or not formal, think about adding some things that you can just throw in there. And again, it doesn't have to be something that is, really time consuming or formal, but just things that's keeping it to the forefront of their mind so that they're not, it's not getting lost in the shovel of everyday life and everyday job, their everyday jobs. Okay, our last question, as far as the who, what, when, where, and how, is going to be how are you communicating about your compensation plan? So we have one last poll here that is really talking about what methods you use to communicate with your compensation package to your employees. So is it a written communication, whether it's an email or newsletter, part of the annual review process, or during a staff meeting or other? And I guess I did not put all the above on here, and so I apologize. If just let's use other as all the above. So I apologize about that. Or if you're not doing all of those, you can. And if you are doing something else, you can put that in the questions box, and we can take a look at that in just a second. Okay. All right, awesome. So it looks like a lot of you are doing all the above. That's awesome. So 40% of you are doing other or all the above. 20% during the staff meeting, 25% during annual review process, and 15% email to all employees or have it in a newsletter. So some sort of written communication. So that's great. A lot of different things and different ways that you're communicating to your staff about compensation. So that is awesome. Thank you so much, Mariah. I really appreciate it. Sorry about that. So, no matter how you are communicating, you want to make sure that you are communicating your benefits. So whether it's through email, through, staff meetings, individual one-on-one meetings with managers, make sure that you're communicating your benefits and so that they know exactly what's going on. And you want to mix it up. I know that when my kids and I go to get frozen yogurt, there's always a whole smattering of different toppings. So there's no right answer. Mix it up. Have people, pick and choose which ones work for you, and which ones you're hearing that that folks at your health center are going to respond most to. So whether it's by newsletter, by email, again, part of that annual review meeting or staff meeting, or ongoing communication with managers, make sure that you're communicating with your employees, and also keep the message fresh. So, you might have a benefit of the month if you have a staff meeting every month, or, if there's something that that a benefit that not a lot of your staff is taking advantage of, highlight that as part of, in your newsletter or in an email or other type of communication to your employees. There really is no wrong way to, or, no wrong format or way to communicate your compensation plan with your staff. Just keep it, mix it up, keep it fresh, and just continue doing it. So as we wrap up today, we're gonna really talk about what we can do now. So when you finish this conversation, when you get off this webinar, and before you dive into your compensation, all of the great things that go into compensation planning and all the different elements of your compensation plan, what can you do right now when it comes to your overall communication strategy? So what I want you guys to think about is, what is your health center story? What are the attributes of your health center that you want both your current staff as well as potential staff to know about your health center? If you know what your 2-sentence story or your 10 or 5 adjectives that describe your health center, it will really help craft your overall communication strategy when it comes to your compensation plan moving forward there. So figure out what your story is, what you want people to know about your health center, and then you're going to want to review your current communication plan and also the things that you're using to communicate your overall communication plan about. So does your communication plan match up with the health center story? So if you say that your health center is altruistic and is true to the mission, are you weaving that in to your communications about your overall communication strategy? And you want to take a look at and see, how is your communications working for you? Do you feel like you get a lot of feedback on your compensation plan, whether it's good or positive or negative? Are you getting that communication back from your employees? And also, lastly, what do you need to do to add or revise your compensation communication plan? So if you have one, great. If you don't, start to think about it. Think about, how you communicate with your employees as a whole. And then also, as you dive into the compensation planning conversation, think about how you're going to incorporate that into your overall communications plan as well there. So again, take some time to reflect about it, what your strengths, what your opportunities are, and what you want to focus on. It will really help you when you're thinking about revamping, and whether it's revamping or starting a new communications plan, rather, about your compensation package. So think about that, figure out where you are, where you want to go, and as you start to craft it, you can have a roadmap about where you want to be. So with that, I will take some questions, and I'm going to open my questions box here. And looks like we don't have any questions yet. But I do have somebody who put in the questions box about how they communicate with, about their overall compensation plan. So it looks like this person had both scheduled time, voluntary, and also voluntary meetings that, that no one shows up for. So, that is something that, absolutely can definitely be a problem. If you don't have anybody show up for those meetings, because let's face it, everyone has lots of things going on, but you have that opportunity where your HR staff or your managers or your C-suite is there to answer. Maybe make that a part of your overall staff meeting. So, instead of just voluntary, maybe keep that time, or say, we have an open door policy, but weave those messages that you are going to put into that meeting that no one is showing up for into something else that that is mandatory, that they have to show up for. And someone asked, what's the role of the board, if any? So I would say we're going to talk a little bit about strategic planning in one of our next sessions, but the board should definitely be involved in the overall compensation planning. And again, we're definitely going to talk about that in a future webinar, when we talk about getting feedback and internal engagement. But as far as communication, the board communication, you want to make sure that the board is obviously well informed of your compensation plan, and so they can, if your health center staff knows who the board members are, and especially when it comes to small towns and people are interacting with each other, make sure that they're just as informed as your managers about your overall communication plan, about your compensation plan, so they can communicate with your staff as well, and that they can, speak and receive feedback too, so that they can be a vessel of feedback as well when you're thinking about things that you want to, opportunities for improvement with your compensation plan, so they can have that as well. So yes, the board should definitely be involved and be able to be a vessel for communication, even though it might not be an everyday type of thing. Anybody else have a question? Okay, well, while we finish up, feel free to ask any other questions while we move on to looking at the rest of the series. So these are going to continue on Wednesdays at 1 p.m. Eastern until June 12th. So we have 4 left in the series. We've got a couple different speakers coming up, and we're really excited about them. And we hope you guys will be able to, at the end of this, really have some good strategies and good plan for your overall compensation plan, and being able to communicate that to your employees. So thank you guys for being here today with us. I don't see any other questions that have come in. So again, thank you so much for your time and attention today. Feel free to stay in touch with us. This webinar will be archived. So if there's somebody that didn't get an opportunity to listen to it, it will be archived and will be sent out to everyone, so you can listen to it again or pass it on to your colleagues who weren't able to attend. So thank you guys again. We look forward to seeing you guys next week, or hearing you guys next week. And in the meantime, have a great afternoon, and stay in touch. Thanks, everybody.